The Jester Radio Podcast.
What's happening, guys? Jester Radio, another episode, another amazing guest. A guest that was close to winning R1 million, right?
Almost. I was robbed.
You were robbed.
By
Literally. No pun intended.
Yes.
So, introduce yourself, Nicole.
Hi guys, I'm Nicole Capper. I am previous Mrs. South Africa, runner-up on Survivor South Africa 2019, and adventurer, I suppose, in all aspects.
Miss South Africa.
Mrs. South Africa.
And that was 2017.
2017.
Okay, and is that what piqued your interest in terms of training, or obviously because you need to look good for the category? And were you previously training a lot before that, or?
So my background, I was very lazy in life. I was hiding a lot. I was very shy, very insecure. And I decided when my second child was born, Tatum, that I needed to change my life a little bit. So it was a bit of a, one of those moments that your life is never going to be the same again. And she was diagnosed with a rare life-limiting disease at 6 weeks old called cystic fibrosis. And it was my pigeon pair. I had a little boy and a little girl and just the perfect life. And then, 3 weeks into her life, she stopped breathing in my house and turned grey, and I had to rush her into hospital. And we spent the next 2 months in ICU trying to figure out what was wrong with her. And it turned out that all those hopes and dreams you have for your kids that you think are guaranteed, this is just, going to happen. It's shifted. I wouldn't say it's gone. It's just different. And the future is completely unpredictable. And I think with that came this responsibility, because what am I going to do to be an example to my daughter? Not anybody else, first and foremost for myself and for my kids, because one day with integrity I'm going to have to stand in front of her and ask her to fight for her life. I'm going to ask her to be brave. I'm going to ask her to go through really tough procedures and difficult therapies. And I need to be tough myself. She needs to look at her mom and say, okay, we can do this. Yeah. And that was the start of a whole cascade of events. And at the time, I think the bravest thing I could have imagined doing was Mrs. South Africa, because I was so shy and so insecure. And I wanted to do something that pushed me. And that was just the first thing I found. And I'd watched other people's journeys. And I thought, well, let's give this a shot. And I think because of my daughter's challenge at that point, I poured everything into it and decided, you know what, I'm really going to fight for this. And then I won. And that opened up a whole bunch of possibilities in my mind, mostly. Like, hey, who knew? I've never modeled, I've never done a pageant. What else could I do?
So before you were, this business person, this person that was so active on social media and building your own fan base on social media, what were you doing before 2017?
So I have a background as a pharmacist. I'm still a registered South African pharmacist. I worked and specialized in operations management, and I worked in a warehouse managing logistics. And then from there, I developed an interest in the events and marketing side of the business, and I started to play in those areas. And I think I found my passion for marketing and creativity. And I left them shortly before starting Mrs. South Africa journey, and I decided to do my own consultancy in marketing. And then I realized, hey, I can actually take ownership of my own business and experiment and take risks. And if I work hard enough, some of those risks might just pay off, and they have.
They have big time. So as did you come second or third in Survivor? Second. And as coming second, what do you get? Because obviously Rob it was R1 million, huh?
Yeah. So I know it's going to sound very cliched, but I never entered for the money. Of course I wanted to win. I'm very competitive by nature, but I went in it for the adventure. And for me, winning was a few things. Winning was getting all the way to day 39. So I never had my torch put out. I got to be at that final tribal council, which was brutal. I got to make friends that I'll keep forever. Yeah. And I think the biggest gift of all, more than R1 million, money is temporary. Money comes and goes, and anybody who's ever made it and lost it will tell you that. And even Rob will tell you this himself, the winner, that it's not about the money. It's about the person you discover on that island. Because, and I think you'll probably relate from training, that when you push yourself so hard, when you go into that hurt locker, when you expose yourself to brutal elements and protocols and training, and I think there's a lot of parallels that can be drawn between training and being on the island.
Definitely, and you also built an amazing, or you furthered your own personal brand through it. and that's obviously more beneficial to you than the R1,000,000 would have ever been.
Definitely. And it comes down to authenticity. I think there's the people that battled coming home from Survivor were the people that couldn't reconcile who they saw on the island, with who they thought they were. And for me, it was really healthy to see myself on television, see what other people thought of me, and say, hey, I am actually that person. And I, as a ex-beauty queen, I get quite annoyed when people say to me, this is my good side, or delete that photo, I look terrible. I'm like, no, that is you. You actually look like that.
Yeah.
All angles. And I think to accept yourself, all angles, good, bad, and ugly, you identify a lot of your strengths. And it's really healthy to identify your weaknesses, because that's where you find other people in teams to fill in gaps, and that's how you actually grow.
Yeah, well, definitely adversity always, propels you and pushes you forward.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, doing Mrs. South Africa, being someone that previously tried to hide, you threw yourself in the deep end.
Completely. And I think deep down I knew that's why I went. I went to expose myself. Hey, let's go no makeup, no hair.
Yeah.
But it was so much more than the superficial stuff. It was no masks, no hiding, no pretty Instagram picture and caption to hide behind. This is who I am. This is what I think. This is how I handle adversity in situations. And it's a really, really healthy process. And I hope that everybody pushes themselves in life in some environment, whether it's Survivor, if you ever have the luxury of being on something like that, or in pushing yourself in some kind of hobby or passion that requires every inch of your soul, so that you do break at times. Yeah.
Well, as humans, we do need to push ourselves to a limit that requires, additional type of work, something that requires something to be changed, and forcing yourself into the situations are hugely beneficial. How have you seen your brand shift from Mrs. South Africa to obviously going and being a Survivor finalist?
I have seen it become a lot more transparent and hopefully a bit more relatable and real. I now thrive on being the relatable as far as possible. That's why I think one of the reasons I was excited to come and sit with you. You are an extreme athlete in your field. And for me, I have never been the ultimate athlete, but I am now in the division as a brand of sports people.
Yeah.
And only because I go and do sporty, fun outdoor things, but I am not super fit. I am not the fastest. I'm not the strongest, not by far. Maybe mentally I am strong. And I don't quit very easily, but I'm the relatable, average, middle of the pack person. I'm a mom of two, and I like to say, if I can do something, then maybe other people can ask themselves, could I do that too?
Yeah, well, it shows the power of resilience, because you weren't particularly, let's say, overachieving in everything without trying. So you achieved greatness through being resilient, through hard work and through dedication.
And I hope that people can start to realize they don't have to go and be super talented at anything, because I'm not really. You don't have to go and be the best at something. You just have to work a little bit harder than anyone else.
But you're definitely very, obviously with the marketing background, very good at marketing yourself.
I'm also really good at being very creative, going out on a tangent sometimes, which is cool. I love working with brands. So I work with a lot of small businesses, medium businesses, and put together marketing and strategies and campaigns for them, from PR to digital marketing to recreate brands, even redesigning their brand, because I really believe in getting a company and a personal brand's true message out. And I speak a lot about personal branding because I do believe that every single person is a brand.
Yeah.
I think it's a healthy thing. I know a lot of people are quite resistant to it. They think that there's a vanity in considering yourself a personal brand. I don't think that there's a vanity at all. I think it's a very healthy, humble approach that you are portraying yourself every single day in every business and personal relationship. What message are you telling?
Yeah.
What story are you telling? If you want to use social media to be part of that social brand, that personal brand, then do it. But if you don't want to, then don't. You're telling a complete story package. How do you do that?
How was your experience on Survivor in terms of, how long was the duration of filming and everything? Obviously, up until they released the first episode.
So it was an incredible experience. I can't even tell you. You are totally isolated from everything that once protected you. Totally stripped away. And all in all, I was away from home for 48 days with no contact with my kids. That was incredibly hard.
So you weren't allowed contact with Your kids, obviously,
No,
no one
my loved
really.
ones, no.
Okay.
And it was quite a cool story because you get taken away from everything that you know and love, and you get to appreciate it all the more. I was in a relationship when I left for Survivor, and while I was away, I didn't know what I'd be coming back to. And at the end of the process for the loved ones visit, I got somebody who traveled for 2 weeks to the other side of the world, literally to Samoa.
Sure.
And to spend 10 minutes with me on an episode.
Wow.
And I got back to an engagement proposal.
Oh, that's
and,
very special.
We have a family out of Survivor because we realized what's important in life.
Yeah. And you've obviously grown as a person through Survivor, and also relationships with other people have grown.
Yes.
How did your perspective on other people change through Survivor? Because obviously you were interacting with so many people who were in the same situation as you.
That is a cool question. I think I come from a background of I'm a recovering people pleaser. I'm a lover. I love everybody. I give everybody the benefit of the doubt. And Survivor was a very healthy process to, first of all, realize my own darkness in a healthy way, but realize that other people, not everybody's going to like you, approve of you, and be your best friend. So to come back and be able to put into place boundaries in life with, this is the kind of behavior that I will or will not tolerate, was so healthy for me. Because especially as a woman, and with the kind of narrative I'm trying to tell, it's one of strength that you don't have to tolerate relationships just because you think they're important. You get to design your life. Your career, you choose it. You get to design your close relationships, the intimate ones, and you get to design, who your acquaintances are in order to help you grow and where you can also be effective. And if there's damaging relationships that are counterproductive, remove them.
Yeah. You've obviously had to do a lot of, auditing your circle, because there's a lot of people, I assume now, even after Survivor, even after Mrs. South Africa, that have almost tried to put themselves in your life, maybe just for the publicity that they would get from you, or obviously you've had those type of people, and anyone in the spotlight would have it.
Absolutely. And I think it's a healthy thing. It doesn't matter how big that spotlight is. It doesn't matter if you're the most famous person in South Africa, or, it really doesn't matter. It's very healthy to realize that everybody in life wants something from you. There are very few of them whose motives are pure and who want the best for you and just want relationship with you to benefit you. Those are your inner circle, and you keep that really small. The rest of them all want something from you, and it's healthy to realize that, okay, well, maybe you want something from them too, and there can be a really healthy, beneficial work relationship, business engagement, as long as you remain objective. That not everybody is your best friend. It's a working relationship.
Well, I'm sure that's something obviously that Survivor taught you, because there's a lot of backstabbing and a lot of cunning and behind the scenes thoughts that go into people, like, I'm going to be friends with Nicole today so that she doesn't vote me out tomorrow.
Yes.
And that must have been obviously difficult, because you say you trust and you think the best of people. Did you have to harden yourself up to people during the process?
I did, but I also realized that I was one of those people. So I was completely manipulating everybody on the island because I had one true intimate relationship with my brother, Rob, and I, that we got to the end because of that alliance. And that everybody else, I made them believe that they were my best friend, and that I had
it's
their
the
back.
name of the game.
Correct. And it was a healthy, I think, realization for me on my side, but also about others.
How have you, someone that obviously as a female in South Africa, how have you found it difficult to build your own personal brand? Obviously, you've been able to do so well, Mrs. South Africa, Survivor, and that has obviously helped you in terms of building your own brand. But obviously, as a female in South Africa, there's a lot of effort that goes into it.
That's a very cool question, Jesse, because there are always going to be barriers. And you know this, in any sport, in any business, there are lines, there are stereotypes that will hold you back. It's purely by where you were born, who you are, your background, and your parameters. And that will define your results. So you have to take that context that you're given and make that work for you. So, for me, yes, being a woman is tough sometimes because, an example, Survivor, Rob and I played exactly the same game, but I was hated because a woman, and especially a beauty queen, is supposed to be nice and honest. But I would never have gotten as far as I did if I was on the game. So that is a context that a woman faces automatically that she walks into. But I don't want to limit this conversation to just women. It's all barriers that we face in South Africa. They exist.
Yeah.
And I think it's so important that we acknowledge it. But then you know what? At the end of the day, you take responsibility and ownership for your own parameters. As a woman, I might face certain barriers that men wouldn't. I'll work harder to overcome those barriers. I recognize that they exist. I'll use my voice to contribute to help other people overcome them. But acknowledging they're there is really important.
Yeah. But also kind of acknowledging they're there, but not acknowledging to the fact and to the extent that it would affect you.
Yes.
So obviously you say, okay, maybe the stereotype, I should be a nice person. I wouldn't be the one that's going to be backstabbing. Well, not backstabbing, but obviously, more manipulative to be able to get what you want.
Yeah,
and it's almost, you need to almost acknowledge them, but almost pretend they don't exist, because it doesn't matter. You're a male, female, black, white. It doesn't matter. You should be able to be the person who you are, and it shouldn't be a stereotype around it.
So I like to think that if there are 10 positions available and only one of them was for women and 9 were for men, I will fight my damnedest to get that one position for women. But then I will make sure that when I get that position, I will work to change the narrative within that context to expand it for more women. And you don't always get it right, but that's the goal.
Yeah. You obviously, being in the public eye now, have had a lot of sponsorships and people that are using you to benefit themselves. How have you, kind of seen who's going to use me to benefit their brand, or who's using me because I fit their brand perfectly, and who have you chosen who to align with and who not to?
I'm very careful usually with who I partner with, especially brands. I like to do my research, and I like to work with brands that I foresee a long-term, loyal relationship. Brands are not brands. And I wish that influencers, I hate even saying that word, ambassadors, anybody that represents a brand would see it differently. You're now part of a brand family. You have an obligation to be loyal to them, to find out what they're about, and to consider yourself an extended part of their company. But I have also made mistakes. I have also made premature decisions and rushed into relationships that were poorly thought out. And I think I'm learning by making mistakes, because that's how we learn, that you need to really be careful who you align your personal brand with, because by essence you're then saying, I believe in what that brand believes in. And that's very dangerous. I think that we need to be a little bit more transparent as well as influencers, and say, hey, I stuffed up. I made mistakes. I've made many mistakes. The only reason that I've gotten where I am is because I've made mistakes. And I wish that the South African entertainment, media, ambassador, influencer industry were more honest with the mistakes that they've made, because it would create such a great responsibility to one another to say, hey, I stuffed up again. Let's change the narrative. Let's be part of a solution, instead of trying to pretend that you're so perfect and so awesome all the time.
I think also that's what helps on social media and has helped you, is being real and being 100% transparent, and because it helps people relate to you better, and it helps people obviously be able to see themselves in you.
I hope so. I think that I'm just an ordinary person who's trying to do extraordinary things, messing up a lot of the time, and just working a little bit harder. I've read a really cool book by Bear Grylls. Obviously, I love the whole survival adventure angle. I think he's a super cool human, but he just said he studied a whole bunch of successful people. He's read books about everybody who's got 75 principles on success. Yes, there's lots of different things about your character and your integrity and all of this that you can work to refine. He says, but the people that usually make it in anything, from politics to media to career to whatever, family, etc., are the people that just work a little bit harder for a little bit longer. It's those people that don't give up. It's that little bit of grit. He said most people just fall away right at the end, right near the finish line. And if you can just push a little bit further, you'll get where you want to go. And I don't usually tolerate no very well. Yeah,
well, that is something that people need to understand, is there's no such thing as an overnight success.
No.
There's no such thing as stumbling upon greatness. Greatness is something that you have to earn and you have to work towards.
Yeah, I mean, I only really started my current career 4 years ago, and I've had to work extremely hard to compress a lot of my efforts into a small space of time, because I'm in an industry where people have been working since they were 16 years old on these careers, and I have so much respect for them. Looking at somebody like Bonang in the entertainment industry and how long she's been working at it, and how many times she's lost gigs and made mistakes and picked herself up and redefined her brand. It's that kind of tenacity that you just get a bit of perspective, and you judge people a little bit less harshly, and you start looking at everybody in the industry, and I think wherever you want to go in life, to look at people in your industry with a bit of more respect and a little bit more empathy for what they might have gone through to get where they are, and to start picking up little lessons and little threads from everybody like that.
Do you as yourself maybe look at other influencers or other people that are in the spotlight and almost try to learn from them? And it's not just you know everything and you are the way you are because you know everything. Do you get inspiration from other people?
Such a cool question. I think this is such a fine line to walk, because I watched it in the Mrs. South Africa process. I've watched it in Survivor. When you are in any kind of competition, to be inspired by the people around you, but to stay in your lane. And it's a very difficult balance, because you cannot afford to be arrogant and say, I know how to do this, I've got this. You need to take inspiration from those around you, even on the same level in the same competition. But you also need to stay true to who you are. Trust your gut, follow your own instincts. Otherwise, you just end up looking like somebody who's trying to say and do the right things.